A desert where just yesterday the wind chased dust across the plains is now a futuristic metropolis with skyscrapers, automated factories, and high-speed highways. No, this isn't a scene from science fiction. This is the reality that China has turned into a norm. One of the most striking examples is the city of Xiong'an. Back in the late 2000s, it was nothing but fields and villages. Today, it's a glimpse into China's future, built almost entirely from the ground up in just a few years. Xiong'an was envisioned not just as a city, but as a next-gen smart administrative hub. Everything here is managed through digital systems. Traffic, energy consumption, public safety, even access to shared spaces. There's not a single traffic light without AI, not a single trash bin without a sensor. It's all part of China's grand plan to ease the burden on Beijing and develop new economic powerhouses. The pace of construction is mind-blowing. Thousands of buildings went up at the same time. Work continued around the clock, with machinery coordinated via satellites and custom algorithms. 8 subway lines, 80 schools, and hundreds of thousands of apartments, all built in less than a decade. In most countries, this would be impossible. In China, it's just another day of ambition. It might seem like Xiong'an is a one-off, but in reality, it's just one of many. China isn't just building houses, it's building the future from the ground up. The world watches with awe, fear, and admiration. Now imagine connecting such cities with colossal bridges stretching over the seas. Some bridges connect shores, others connect entire worlds. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge is not just a bridge, it's an engineering challenge to nature, time, and logic. Stretching nearly 90 miles, crossing it takes longer than a flight between two countries. And yet, the Chinese not only built it, they did so in one of the most earthquake-prone and storm-battered zones on the planet. 3 seismic fault lines, raging typhoons, salty seawater, and depths of over 100 feet. None of it stopped them. The solution? Instead of one long bridge, they created a mix of viaducts, artificial islands, and an undersea tunnel. That's right. Part of the bridge goes underwater to allow ships to pass above. The tunnel itself spans more than 4 miles, laid at depth with each section positioned by hand, accurate to the inch. It took nearly 10 years and billions of dollars, but the result is a major transport artery linking key economic regions. This isn't just an engineering marvel, it's a geopolitical statement. The bridge is so massive it can be seen from space. Yet beneath the waves, China is working on even more hidden projects, underground. What if there's an entire city beneath your feet? In China, that's not science fiction. In Beijing, Shanghai, and Chongqing, there are miles of tunnels, shelters, logistics hubs, even residential complexes, all hidden underground. Most of these structures are still not shown on any maps. Beijing stands out in particular. Back in the 1970s, the city began building an underground complex capable of sheltering millions, a Cold War-era answer to the threat of nuclear war. Today, that ghost city is finding new life. China has repurposed it for modern urban needs, transport corridors, warehouses, data centers, and logistics hubs. Many tunnels are directly linked to critical government facilities and infrastructure. But safety isn't the only reason behind the rise of underground architecture. China is also tapping into deep earth resources. Its mountainous regions are laced with engineered shafts and drainage tunnels plunging hundreds of feet deep. Some of them work as covert pumping stations for a vast water transfer project known to very few outside the country. Thousands of tons of concrete underground, millions of cubic feet of air circulated by intelligent ventilation systems, all hidden from sight. But this concrete is moving. It's turning into rivers. China is facing a dire challenge. The northern regions are drying out while the southern ones drown in floods. The solution? Build a river. Yes, literally. The South-North Water Transfer Project is a massive system of canals, pumping stations, and underground aqueducts stretching for thousands of miles. It forces water to flow uphill, across mountains and plains, to the places that need it most. The project includes 3 main routes: eastern, central, and western. The central route is already up and running, pumping water from the Yangtze River to northern China, including Beijing. To do this, they had to blast through mountains, build dams, relocate millions of people, and flood dozens of villages. The scale is staggering. Massive pumping stations lift millions of gallons of water every day. But the real shocker is the speed. Sections longer than the Panama Canal were completed in just a few years. China borrowed techniques from the oil and defense industries, drilling robots, automated floodgates, digital flow simulations. All this to stop the north from turning into a desert. But while water slowly makes its way north, skyscrapers can rise in the south in a matter of days. If someone told you that a 30-story building was constructed in China in just 6 days, you'd probably think it's a hoax. But the Broad Group did exactly that. Live on camera. They built a skyscraper from modular blocks so fast, construction standards in other countries look prehistoric by comparison. The method is simple. Like a giant Lego set, factory-built modules come with everything inside. Wiring, plumbing, even furniture. On site, they're just screwed together. The result? A fully livable building just days after the first bolt is tightened. These buildings aren't just fast, they're sustainable. They use minimal energy, generate hardly any construction waste, and can even be disassembled and moved elsewhere. Imagine a skyscraper on wheels. That's no longer sci-fi, it's Chinese reality. But what's more intriguing isn't the buildings themselves, it's why they're going up so fast. In some cases, these towers were built for secret research facilities, and in others, for launching things far beyond ordinary construction, like rockets. While most countries launch rockets from land, China is turning to the ocean. In the Pacific, a strange structure has emerged, a massive platform that looks like an offshore oil rig. But instead of drilling for oil, it launches satellites. This maritime spaceport is one of the boldest and most unconventional projects in China's aerospace program. The idea is both simple and brilliant. Launching from a sea platform allows for optimal orbital positioning, reduces risks to populated areas, and simplifies logistics. China is repurposing cargo ships and building specialized floating bases, some stretching over 600 feet long, equipped with command centers, navigation systems, and even autonomous storm protection. The first launches have already taken place, and they were successful. The platform can launch light and medium-class rockets, including modified Changzheng models. Future plans include heavy-lift vehicles and even manned modules. This approach gives China extraordinary mobility and the ability to launch from virtually anywhere on the planet. It's not just a technical achievement, it's a strategic advantage. While others are tangled in bureaucracy and environmental permits, China is launching satellites straight from the ocean. And while rockets soar above the sea, on land, trains are speeding by, faster than anything else ever built. A regular high-speed train going 200 miles an hour is already impressive. But China decided to go much further. Here, engineers are designing trains that could travel 1,000 miles in just 1 hour, all inside near vacuum tubes. This isn't science fiction, it's a functioning test system based on magnetic levitation and pipeline transport principles. The Super Maglev project has already passed its first trials. The platforms move through an airless tube, eliminating resistance. The result? Astonishing speed and smoothness. These trains don't touch the tracks. They float inches above a magnetic guideway. China has built the world's longest test site, over 20 miles, to trial real working prototypes. Even today's ordinary Chinese trains are nearly sci-fi. The maglev line between Shanghai and the airport travels faster than domestic flights. New routes now connect megacities thousands of miles apart in just a few hours. Future plans include a rail bridge to Europe and a line crossing mountains and deserts, without a single curve. But it's not just the speed that amazes. Some of these trains run across bridges so high they'll make your head spin. High in the mountains of Guizhou province, a bridge stretches across a canyon, and it looks almost drawn by hand. The Beipanjiang Viaduct soars over 1,500 feet above ground, taller than most skyscrapers on Earth. Driving across it feels like your wheels could lift off into the clouds at any moment. This bridge holds the record for the highest road deck in the world. Construction was extreme. Sheer cliffs, constant fog, and landslides. Workers labored on vertical heights, suspended like climbers, tethered to safety lines. Each support beam weighs dozens of tons and had to be placed with inch-level precision. Beipanjiang isn't just a photo op. It cuts travel time between two provinces from 5 hours to 1. It's one of hundreds of bridges China is building across mountains, jungles, and rivers, ignoring natural barriers. The harsher the conditions, the bigger the challenge, not the obstacle. But it's not just transportation rising into the clouds. One Chinese city is already drawing nearly all its energy from the sky, and not just figuratively. Somewhere in Shandong province, across the plains, lies a city where rooftops aren't covered with tiles, but solar panels. The entire residential district of Taiyin is an experimental zone powered almost entirely by the sun. And it's not just a small neighborhood, it's a full-scale urban cluster with tens of thousands of residents. The project started as a push to cut emissions and became a full-fledged model of the future. Solar panels are everywhere, on roofs, walls, sidewalks, even bus stops. The city is fully automated. A system monitors energy flows, stores surpluses, and redirects power to where it's needed most. The infrastructure is optimized for energy efficiency, smart windows, advanced insulation, and heat pump systems. On weekdays, the entire city can disconnect from the national grid and still run at full capacity. China is scaling up projects like this across the country. Solar villages, neighborhoods, and factories are under construction. But among them, one strange form of transport stands out. Not driving on roads, but gliding above the traffic. When a regular bus gets stuck in traffic, it's a problem, but China found a way to bypass it from above. The straddling bus, as the prototype was called, was unveiled in Xiong'an. It looked like something from the future, a bus on rails that traveled right above the flow of cars. It didn't touch the road. Its base hovered at the height of a second story, allowing cars to pass freely underneath. The transit elevated bus project caused a stir. This massive vehicle, over 60 feet long and as wide as 2 lanes, could carry up to 1,000 passengers in one trip. Imagine cruising through the city, while a whole floor of transit floats over you. The platform ran on special tracks, and the entire system was managed by automation. But as often happens, things didn't go as smoothly. There were problems with turning, infrastructure, and safety. The project was frozen, but the idea lives on. New versions of flying transit are now in development, using magnetic levitation and drone escorts. China isn't giving up on its ambitions, it's just evolving them. And while some machines are flying, others are battling a different force, nature itself, which in some parts of China comes in overwhelming abundance. When you think of the Great Wall of China, ancient stone fortresses probably come to mind. But modern China is building a different kind of wall. Living, concrete, invisible, and digital. And it's not defending against enemies, but against nature. Floods, sandstorms, landslides, even drought. All have driven the creation of one of the largest environmental defense systems in history. On one side, it's massive dams and drainage systems, like the Three Gorges. Not just a dam, but a hydro-engineering titan nearly a mile long, capable of holding back 100 billion cubic feet of water. Behind that wall lie millions of lives and entire cities. Every storm becomes a test, and the system responds like a living organism. On the other side, there's the Green Wall. Millions of trees planted across northern China to halt desert expansion. The project has been underway for decades, already covering several 100,000 square miles. Drones handle planting, AI manages irrigation, and satellites monitor growth. But even that wasn't enough. Inside megacities, China is building sponge cities, infrastructure that absorbs and redistributes water like a sponge. Sidewalks, roads, and parks are laced with underground tanks and filters. This is a new kind of architecture, where nature isn't the enemy, it's a partner. But if you think China stopped at ground level, look up. Because high above, at 1,500 feet, people are walking through the sky on glass. In the Zhangjiajie Mountains, the same ones that inspired James Cameron's Avatar, there's a bridge that defies belief. It's entirely made of glass. The floor, the sides, the walkway. You feel like you're walking on air. The height? Over 1,000 feet. Beneath your feet, a canyon and mountains. For the unprepared tourist, knees tend to buckle. This bridge isn't just a tourist attraction, it's an engineering stress test. The glass panels can support the weight of a truck. They've been tested with sledgehammers and even driven over by cars. The bridge stands up to strong winds, snow, and earthquakes, and it delivers the full experience of fear, the illusion of fragility, backed by steel-like strength. Inspired by the success, China has begun building entire glass trails. They snake along cliffs, hang over drop-offs, and lead to what seems like nowhere. Tourism of the future is a mix of fear, adrenaline, and engineering wonder. But not all of China's structures are open to visitors. Some are permanently sealed off, hidden under massive domes, shielding entire cities. You walk into a space where the weather is always perfect. No rain, no smog, no wind. Everything is enclosed under a massive transparent dome, straight out of science fiction. But this isn't a dream. It's China's real-world experiment in building autonomous eco-cities. The first such dome was constructed near Chengdu. It spans dozens of acres and encloses homes, schools, shops, even parks. The entire ecosystem is self-regulated. Temperature, humidity, lighting, all controlled automatically. Energy comes from solar panels, waste is processed on-site, and water circulates in a closed loop. The goal is to create cities independent from the external environment. These domes can operate in extreme conditions: deserts, polluted zones, even the Arctic. China sees them as prototypes for future habitats, possibly even off-world. But to build cities like these, you need land. Or you make your own, right in the middle of the ocean. Where waves once rolled, skyscrapers now rise, roads stretch out, and even military bases operate. China has mastered the art of creating artificial islands, especially in the South China Sea. Here, on tiny reefs, full-fledged land masses with concrete infrastructure emerge in just a few months. The technology is stunning. Dredging ships deposit thousands of tons of sand and rock. Workers reinforce the structures with concrete slabs, then cover them with asphalt, antennas, and hangars. Some islands are over 2 miles long and can accommodate aircraft landings. But it's not all about military strategy. China is also building civilian islands, resorts, ports, and energy platforms. It's territorial expansion that defies physics and international law. The country is creating land where none existed. But the most ambitious project isn't an island. It's a city where every street lamp, every camera, every action is run by artificial intelligence. In Shenzhen, China's lab of the future, there's a district where every system is digital. Every movement is tracked. Every object is managed by AI. This isn't just a smart home, it's a smart city. Cameras read faces, monitor body temperature, control traffic, and even sense crowd mood. There are no police officers in the traditional sense. Order is maintained by algorithms. Cleaning, lighting, transportation, all operate in sync, without human input. Even the buildings are intelligent. Facades adjust lighting. Ventilation systems respond to real-time cloud data. These cities aren't experimental. They're part of China's national strategy. They're efficient, responsive, and offer a complete real-time snapshot of daily life. Every resident's action becomes a data point. Every decision, the product of millions of inputs. This isn't the future. It's already happening. And in the shadows of these digital streets, even larger projects are rising. Factory cities, robots, and tunnels that will transform everything. There are factories where thousands of people work, and then there are factories where thousands of people live, all under one roof. In China, industrial complexes have been built that are bigger than some national capitals. These aren't just production sites, they're cities. Take Foxconn's factory in Zhengzhou. It's not just a manufacturing plant, it's a city of 100,000 people. There are hospitals, dorms, supermarkets, fire stations, police, even a private bus system. Every day, the factory produces millions of components for smartphones, laptops, and home appliances, almost entirely automated. But Foxconn is just one example. China is building industrial clusters where dozens of corporate giants, from metallurgy to microchips, share the same land. These complexes span tens of square miles and generate products worth hundreds of billions annually. Everything is run by centralized systems: logistics, supplies, energy, and security. These cities within cities are the backbone of the economy and testbeds for AI, automation, and robotics. And here's the twist: soon, it won't be humans building these cities, but machines. Picture a construction site with no workers in sight, just crawler platforms with robotic arms, automated cranes, and concrete 3D printers. In China, this is no longer a concept, it's becoming standard practice. The country's rapid growth has outpaced its labor force, and machines are stepping in. The most spectacular are the bridge-building machines. Massive gantry systems, stretching nearly 1,000 feet, laying bridge segments mid-air. No welders, no shouted commands. They move like mechanical spiders on stilts, placing structures with surgical precision. Houses are printed on site. A robot extrudes layers of concrete based on a digital blueprint. A single cottage? Done in a day. Some projects deploy over 100 robots. Some cut metal, others weld beams, others install windows. Overseeing it all is a digital control center with just a handful of engineers. China is developing autonomous construction teams capable of building anywhere, in jungles, deserts, even the Arctic. But the most extreme environments lie underground, where tunnels are being carved on a scale hard to imagine. Passing through a mountain tunnel might not seem remarkable until you realize that in China, some tunnels go deeper than the deepest mines. One of the most astonishing is the Dapu Tunnel, which cuts through the Hengduan Mountains. It runs more than 1,500 feet deep and stretches over 20 miles long. The conditions were brutal. Solid rock, underground rivers, and seismic risk. Work went on around the clock under constant threat. Giant tunnel boring machines over 500 feet long were equipped with navigation, ventilation, and cooling systems. Every meter was guided by digital models, with a margin of error less than an inch. These tunnels serve more than just transport. Many are used for water pipelines, logistics, even underground data storage and emergency reserves. China is turning the underground into a fully integrated part of national infrastructure. And once you've built tunnels and bridges, it's time to switch into maximum speed and start building cities in waves. Thousands of buildings, hundreds of schools, dozens of subway lines in just 1 year. Sounds impossible? Not in China. The country has something known as the concrete wave, where entire districts rise in just a few months. This isn't hyperbole, it's documented reality. Projects in Tianjin and Hebei show an almost inhuman pace of urbanization. Thousands of construction crews, 24/7 work schedules, total automation. Neighborhoods with 1,000 buildings appear in a single construction season. This enables fast relocation from villages, densification of cities, and preparation for strategic goals. Why? Political, demographic, military reasons. China always plans decades ahead. Even if some buildings sit empty, they're ready. This isn't chaos, it's precision. Not haste, but calculation. And all of it leads to something bigger. Because behind the speed and scale lies a deeper ambition: to redefine China's role in the world forever. If you combine everything China is building, it feels like a different planet. Cities that think, roads that move, machines that build themselves. This isn't just economic growth, it's a civilizational leap. No country in history has delivered projects of this scale in such a short time. But the real driver is the goal. China isn't just building for GDP, it's building for influence. Every mega project is a signal, a challenge, an alternative to the Western model. In this scale, nothing is accidental. Everything is calculated. Everything is under control. Today, China is connecting continents, creating islands, managing the climate, and designing digital realities. And if you think you've seen it all, think again. Because in China, scale isn't just a tool, it's a philosophy.